still remember the sound of his voice that day. Calm, certain, cruel in the way only family can be when they think they're just telling you the truth. Ava, be serious. You don't have what it takes. The world's full of people chasing dreams, but most of them don't make it. You won't either. He said it while stirring his coffee, not even looking at me. Like he was commenting on the weather. And that's what made it sting more. It wasn't said in anger. It was said like a fact. My brother, Liam Carter, the golden child of our family, the one who turned every hobby into a headline, every idea into a win. Our parents called him the business brain, the one with vision, the one who knew how to make things happen. And then there was me, the artist, the dreamer, the creative one. That was their polite way of saying she's not practical. We grew up in the same house, but we lived two different stories. He built things, I felt things. When we were little, he'd spend hours in the garage taking apart old radios just to see how they worked. I'd sit nearby, sketching what I imagined he'd invent next, futuristic machines that could fly or talk or bring back lost songs. He'd look at my drawings and smirk. Cute, he'd say, but it's just imagination. None of that's real. I think that was the first time I learned the quiet war between us, the war between the measurable and the magical. Years later, he founded his first company. He was 24, bold, brilliant, and hungry. I was 20, fresh out of college with a music degree and nothing but a worn-out keyboard and an even more worn-out dream. He became the CEO of a creative advertising agency called Pulse House Media, flashy, ambitious, and already climbing fast in the Lowe's Angels entertainment circuit. And I was playing in coffee shops, waiting tables, and wondering if maybe everyone had been right. Maybe I wasn't built for this. I'll never forget the night it broke between us. He'd invited me to his office, one of those glass buildings downtown, all clean lines and bright screens. The kind of place that hums with money and ambition. He said he wanted my feedback on a campaign concept his team was working on, a big project for a new streaming platform. When I walked in, I saw the posters everywhere, vibrant, slick, emotionally empty. Looks expensive, I said, trying to sound supportive. He grinned. It is, but that's how you sell. Emotion doesn't sell, execution does. I frowned. You don't believe in emotion, you're in entertainment, he shrugged. Emotion is messy. People don't want feelings, Ava, they want results. And then he looked right at me for the first time that night. Look, I know you've got this thing for music, but maybe it's time to stop playing pretend. You've got talent, sure, but talent doesn't pay bills, and you don't have the discipline for business. You're too sensitive. You think the world works on passion, it doesn't. He smiled, that soft, pitying smile that makes your skin crawl. You're replaceable, Ava. There are 1,000 dreamers like you. What I do, that's rare. That sentence, you're replaceable, stuck in my ribs like a splinter. I remember laughing, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. Wow, I said. Thanks for the pep talk. He didn't even flinch. I'm just being honest. That night, I walked out of his office into the glowing LA skyline. Everything around me sparkled, the billboards, the traffic lights, the skyscrapers, and all I could think was, one day, I'll make this city say my name. Not for him, not to prove him wrong, but because something inside me refused to die quietly. For months, I tried to let it go. I threw myself into my music. I wrote songs that bled truth, songs about being underestimated, about wanting to scream and still sound beautiful doing it. I performed at bars, open mics, even in the corner of a diner once. Most nights, no one listened. But every time I touched the mic, I felt alive. Then, one night, everything shifted. It was a Friday. The place was packed, not for me, but for the band after me. I was the warm-up act, the filler between drink orders. Half the crowd didn't even look up from their phones. My hands were shaking. My heart felt too big for my chest, and then I saw him. Liam, sitting at the bar, perfect suit, perfect posture, watching me. I froze. For a second, I thought he'd come to support me. That maybe, finally, he believed in me. But then I saw his face, that same faint smirk from the office. The one that said, let's see how far this fantasy goes. And in that moment, something inside me snapped, but in the best way possible. I closed my eyes and played like I'd never played before. Every lyric, every note was a wound reopening. Every breath was defiance. When I finished, the room was quiet. Not because they didn't care, but because, for once, they were actually listening. Then came the applause. Small at first, then bigger. Louder. Liam didn't clap. He just nodded once, then left. That was the last time I saw him for a while. After that night, I stopped performing for approval. I started performing for impact. I uploaded videos online, covered songs, wrote originals, posted behind-the-scenes clips. Nothing fancy, just raw, honest moments, and somehow people noticed. One of my songs, Half of Me, went viral. A clip of me singing on my apartment floor hit over 1 million views in a week. The comments poured in. This made me cry. She sounds like she's telling my story. Why isn't she famous yet? For the first time, I realized I didn't need an invitation to belong. I was already building something from scratch, from soul. That same week, I got a message from a producer named Maya Tors. She said, "Your voice has something raw I can't fake. Let's meet." I didn't sleep that night. I thought about calling Liam. I didn't. When I walked into Maya's studio, it felt like stepping into sunlight. She was everything my brother wasn't: warm, impulsive, fearless. We talked for hours about music, heartbreak, and how every artist starts with someone telling them no. By the end of that meeting, she said, "Let's make something real, something that scares you." That's how my first EP, Unwritten Apologies, was born. We recorded it in 2 months, mostly late at night. The songs were confessions disguised as melodies. One of them was called Replaceable. When Maya heard the demo, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Who hurt you?" she asked. I smiled. "Family." When the EP dropped, it didn't explode immediately, but it grew, quietly, steadily. People started using my songs in TikToks, indie films, even brand ads. My face began to circulate online, soft, unpolished, real. And then, something insane happened. 3 months later, I was walking past Sunset Boulevard when I saw it. A new ad for a music collaboration campaign. One of those sleek billboards showing rising talent. I looked up. My face was on it. My heart stopped. The tagline read, "The Sound of Tomorrow, Ava Carter." And at the bottom corner, in small white letters, produced by Pulse House Media. Liam's company. I stood there in the middle of the street, frozen. My brother's agency had put my face, on their newest campaign. I wanted to laugh, or cry, or both. Later that night, I found out from an old friend who worked at Pulse House that Liam hadn't even realized it was me until the campaign went live. Apparently, his creative team had licensed the image from a partner company without knowing I was the artist. When he saw it, he lost it, tried to have it taken down. But the campaign had already gone viral. Removing it would have caused more backlash. For weeks, my face glowed across Lowe's Angels on his company's billboard. The same brother who once said, "You'll never make it," now paying for the space that proved him wrong. And that's when I realized life doesn't always give you revenge. Sometimes it gives you poetry. That was just the beginning. The real story, the rise, the confrontation, the collapse, came after. But that's another chapter. The night my face went up on that billboard, the city didn't sleep. At least I didn't. I drove back and forth along Sunset Boulevard until dawn, windows down, cold air hitting my face, music blasting just loud enough to drown out the storm inside me. It was surreal, beautiful, terrifying. Somewhere out there, thousands of strangers were looking at my face, and my brother's company name sat right beneath it. The irony was so sharp it almost hurt to breathe. I remember sitting in my car, staring up at the billboard and whispering, "You see me now, Liam." It wasn't meant to be cruel. It was just honest. Because for so long, I'd been invisible, the younger sister, the emotional one, the dreamer people humored but never believed in. And suddenly, I wasn't background anymore. I was center stage, literally larger than life. The campaign blew up faster than anyone expected. Within a week, my follower count doubled. Interviews, podcasts, brand offers, my inbox turned into chaos. People tagged me in photos under the billboard, using captions like "from coffee shops to city lights," and proof that passion pays. But behind all the noise, there was silence from one person, Liam. Not a word, not a text, not even a congrats. At first, I told myself he was busy. He ran an empire, after all. But deep down, I knew that kind of silence wasn't busyness, it was pride. The kind that's heavy enough to sink ships. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a call I didn't expect. It was him. I hesitated before answering. Half of me wanted to ignore it, but the other half, the sister who still wanted her brother's approval, couldn't resist. "Hey," I said softly. He didn't return the warmth. "We need to talk," he said flatly. "Now." No hi, no how are you, just business, typical Liam. We met later that day at his office, the same glass fortress where he'd once told me I was replaceable. The memory of that moment lingered in the air like a ghost. He was standing when I walked in. His jaw was tense, his tie loosened. On the wall behind him, I noticed a smaller version of the same campaign poster, my face staring down from it. "You like it?" I asked, half smiling. He turned to me, eyes sharp. "You shouldn't be in it." I blinked. "Excuse me." "That campaign wasn't supposed to feature you. My team didn't clear that. You're not signed under Pulse House." I laughed under my breath. "Funny, I didn't need your permission to exist on a public street." He sighed, packing. "You don't get it, Ava. This isn't about you. It's about the company. You showing up in our campaign makes it look like we're promoting you personally. There are legal implications." "Legal implications?" I cut in, my voice rising. "For using an artist you already paid for through licensing. Don't twist this, Liam. You didn't plan for it, and now it's just inconvenient for your ego." He stopped packing and looked at me, really looked at me. "You think this is about ego," he said quietly. "You think any of this matters in the long run? Fame fades, trends fade. I've built something that lasts." I took a step closer. "You built something cold." For a second, neither of us spoke. There was so much unsaid in that silence. Years of rivalry, resentment, misunderstanding. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. "Ava, one viral song doesn't make you an artist. It makes you lucky, and luck runs out." That was it, the moment I stopped needing his approval. I turned toward the door, but before I left, I said quietly, "You're right, Liam. Luck runs out, but legacy doesn't. Let's see which one of us builds one first." And I walked out. From that day on, I worked like someone possessed. Every doubt he threw at me turned into fuel. I wrote, recorded, and performed like my life depended on it because, in a way, it did. I wasn't just chasing a career anymore. I was chasing freedom. Maya, my producer, became my anchor. She saw what I couldn't, that my story wasn't just personal. It was universal. People didn't just hear my songs, they felt them. "You don't realize it yet," Maya told me once, "but you're not singing about you anymore. You're singing for everyone who's ever been told they're not enough." That's when we decided to launch my first tour, the Unwritten Tour. Small venues, intimate crowds, no frills. Just me, a piano, and the truth. The night before the first show, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my hotel balcony, staring out at the city lights, thinking about Liam. Would he come? Would he even care? I told myself it didn't matter. But deep down, every success still felt incomplete without him seeing it. It's strange, isn't it? The people who hurt us the most are often the ones we most want to impress. The first concert was magic. The crowd sang every word back to me, voices trembling, eyes wet. When I sang Replaceable, I could barely hold it together. I saw people crying in the front row, total strangers, and it hit me. I wasn't alone anymore. My pain had found a home in others. After the show, my team gathered backstage, laughing, crying, celebrating. That's when my phone buzzed, a text from Liam. "Impressive show. You've grown, let's talk soon." I didn't reply. I couldn't, not yet. Over the next few months, things escalated fast. My second EP, Fault Lines, charted on Spotify. I was featured in Rolling Stone. Artists to watch. Brand deals poured in, interviews, sponsorships, the kind of whirlwind that doesn't feel real until you realize you haven't slept in 3 days. And then, the twist I didn't see coming. Pulse House Media, My brother's company was crumbling. It started with whispers in the industry, rumors of internal conflict, financial strain, a mass exodus of creative directors. Liam had expanded too fast, spent too much, trusted the wrong people. But the story really broke when a former employee leaked documents showing that Pulse House had been recycling concepts, reusing campaign templates, and selling them as originals. The press tore him apart. The irony was almost poetic. The man who said emotion doesn't sell was now being destroyed by the lack of it. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages. Did you see what happened to your brother? Guess karma's got good timing. You won this one, Ava. But I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt conflicted, sad even, because no matter how much he'd hurt me, Liam was still my brother. One night, about a week after the scandal broke, I got another call from him. His voice was quieter this time, smaller. Ava, he said, I need to talk. I met him at a small diner off Melrose, one we used to go to as kids. He looked exhausted. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed. I almost didn't recognize him. You've seen the news, he said. I nodded. They're tearing me apart. I built this from nothing, and now it's all gone. He rubbed his temples. You were right, I built something cold. There was no arrogance left in his tone, just regret. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to throw his own words back at him. You're replaceable. But instead, I just asked, what do you need from me, Liam? He looked up. A partner, someone who knows how to connect with people. I've lost touch. You haven't. Maybe we could rebuild it together. The words hung in the air like smoke. For years, I'd wanted his validation. And now he was asking for mine. It should have felt satisfying. It didn't. I took a deep breath. Liam, I don't think I can save Pulse House, but maybe I can help you. He frowned. What do you mean? I mean, start over. Not as Pulse House. Not as the guy who chased numbers, but as the brother who used to build things just because he loved to see how they worked. He didn't answer, but I saw something shift in his eyes, the faintest flicker of the boy he used to be. We didn't solve everything that night, but it was a start. A month later, he officially stepped down as CEO. The media called it the fall of a visionary. I called it finally letting go. He disappeared from the spotlight after that. I focused on my next chapter, my first full album. Everything I wasn't was a love letter to the people who doubted me and an apology to the girl I used to be. Every song was stitched with forgiveness. And then came the moment that brought everything full circle, the final Billboard, a campaign for my debut album. This time, the creative agency behind it was Pulse House. It was Carter Creative, a new boutique firm started by Liam. And at the bottom of the ad, in bold white letters, it read, Concept by Liam Carter. I stood beneath it that night, staring up. The city lights glowed against the glass, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was winning over him. I felt like we were both finally free. I used to think silence was my safety net. After Liam threw me out of the label office that day, in front of everyone, I promised myself I'd never beg again. I remember the sound of the elevator doors closing, the reflection of my face in that chrome panel, the words still echoing. You're just background noise, Ava. You don't have what it takes to lead. That sentence built an entire new version of me. For weeks, I couldn't even look at my keyboard. The songs I'd written felt childish. Every lyric sounded like a plea for his approval. But then I realized maybe I didn't have to write for him anymore. Maybe I could write about him and every person who'd been told they weren't enough. So I moved to a one-bedroom apartment off Sunset. Peeling paint, thin walls, constant traffic. My neighbors argued through the vents. But at night, when the city lights flickered against my blinds, I felt alive again. I started recording rough demos on a borrowed mic, raw, imperfect, full of anger and ache. I called the folder Noise. The irony made me laugh. When I posted one of the tracks on a small indie forum, it got a few hundred plays, then 1,000. Then someone from a YouTube channel DM'd me, "Can we feature this? It sounds like heartbreak recorded live." That line stuck with me, because that's what it was, heartbreak live. I didn't expect what came next. Overnight, the song exploded across TikTok. Teenagers used it to soundtrack breakups, gym montages, long drives through nowhere. Every time I scrolled, I saw my words lip-synced by strangers. Liam didn't call. Of course he didn't, but I know he saw it. The first proof came 2 weeks later when his assistant, Jess, texted me by accident. Liam says we need to reclaim the narrative. Then a follow-up. Sorry, wrong Ava. I stared at the screen for a long time. Wrong Ava. I was always the wrong one to him. The wrong sound, wrong image, wrong dream. That night, I stayed up until dawn, producing the second track, Wrong One. The hook was a whisper over a bass line that pulsed like a heartbeat. You called me Noise, but the crowd knows my name now. When I uploaded it, I didn't tag him, didn't mention him, but everyone knew. Comments flooded in. Is this about her brother, the exec from Carter Media? She's fearless. This hit's too real. Within a month, I had 50,000 followers and a viral EP. Labels started emailing, small ones at first, then bigger names. I ignored most of them until I got a message from Northlight Entertainment, Liam's biggest competitor. They wrote, "We think your story matters as much as your music. We want to help you tell it." I met with them in a cafe on Melrose, hands shaking. The A&R rep, a woman named Dana Cole, listened to my demo and said, "You've already done the hardest part. You made people feel something. All we need to do is amplify it." By the end of the week, I signed my first real contract, not as a songwriter under someone's shadow, but as Ava Carter, the artist. I didn't tell Liam, but I did tell Mom. She cried over the phone, whispering, "Maybe this will bring you two back together." I didn't have the heart to tell her that some bridges burn themselves. Recording the album was like therapy mixed with adrenaline. Every lyric peeled away another layer of old shame. I'd sit in the booth, headphones on, eyes closed, hearing his voice in my memory saying, "You'll never lead." Then I'd sing louder. We shot the first video downtown, me standing in front of a half-lit billboard that said "She Can't" at the end. The words glitched into "SHE did." The director asked what it meant. I just smiled. 2 days after the premiere, Northlight's PR team called. "Billboard magazine wants to feature you in their Next Up column." I almost dropped my phone. That night, I drove past Carter Media's headquarters, the glass tower my brother had built his ego around. From the street, you could see the giant digital billboard that rotated ads for his artists. I watched the loop, 3 faces, then 4, and wondered what it would feel like to see mine there someday. I didn't know it then, but that image was already in motion. 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed at 2 a.m., an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Ava, it's Jess from Carter Media." I froze. The room was dim, just my laptop glow painting the walls. "Liam doesn't know I'm calling," she whispered. "He's not taking things well. Your songs are everywhere. The board, asking questions." I should have felt pity. Instead, I felt the kind of calm you get when thunder finally rolls after hours of pressure in the air. The next morning, I woke up to trending tags, Carter siblings and She Did. Someone had stitched clips of Liam's old interview, the one where he said, "Artistry isn't a family trait," beside footage of my music video. It had millions of views. He went silent for days. No statements, no press, just quiet panic seeping through the industry. Then, out of nowhere, he posted a half-hearted tweet. "Proud of my sister's hustle. Always knew she'd do great things." The internet wasn't fooled. Every reply dripped with sarcasm. "Oh, now you're proud. Didn't you call her background noise?" The silence after that tweet was louder than any song I'd ever written. I kept working, touring small venues, meeting fans who cried when they said my lyrics felt like theirs. One night, after a show in Austin, a teenager hugged me so tight I could feel her heartbeat and whispered, "My brother said the same thing to me. Thank you for proving them wrong." That was when I realized this wasn't just my revenge story. It was a mirror for every person who'd ever been dismissed by someone they loved. Months blurred together. I barely slept. Interviews, photo shoots, performances. I lived on caffeine and adrenaline. But behind every camera flash, I could sense him watching, calculating, slipping. Then came the call from the American Music Awards. Dana's voice trembled when she told me, "They want you to perform live, primetime slot." I laughed until I cried. The same girl who'd been told she wasn't ready was now about to stand on a stage broadcast to millions. The night of the awards, I wore a black suit, clean, sharp, fearless. The stage lights were blinding, the crowd roaring. I stepped to the mic, took a breath, and whispered into the silence. For everyone who was told they'd never make it. The opening chords hit. The room moved with me. Every lyric was a heartbeat, every beat a confession. After the show, the hashtags returned, this time glowing with celebration. #Ava Carter live trended for 2 days straight. My streaming numbers tripled. Northlight called it a career-defining moment. I didn't know the biggest moment was still waiting. On a billboard I didn't buy. A month later, I landed in LA after a European promo tour. As the car pulled off the freeway, I looked up, and my chest seized. Right above Carter Media's headquarters, the rotating digital screen had changed. My face, my name, my latest album, sponsored by Northlight. The same spot that used to display Liam's biggest artists now glowed with me, Ava Carter, eyes steady, tagline beneath. The noise became music. I couldn't speak. The driver murmured, "That you up there?" I nodded, barely breathing. The next morning, industry gossip exploded. Screenshots of Liam's building plastered across social media. Comment sections on fire. Poetic justice. Full circle moment. He said she'd never make it, look now. I didn't post anything. Didn't need to. But later that week, a photo leaked from an internal meeting, Liam standing under the billboard, head down, hands in pockets. The caption read, "When the noise becomes the headline." I still remember sitting in my apartment, staring at that image, whispering to myself. The silence after he left said it all. Because it did. For the first time, I didn't need to prove him wrong. The world already had. When the billboard went up, the city felt louder. Everywhere I went, people stared a second longer, whispering that they'd seen my face on the Carter Media campaign. It was surreal, not because of the fame, but because that company carried my brother's name. Liam Carter, the golden son of downtown LA, the man who used to tell me, "You'll never last in this business," was now paying ad space to broadcast my success. For a few days, I tried to keep things normal. I still went to my small studio in Echo Park, still answered clients myself, still made coffee that tasted like burnt hope. But the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists wanted quotes. Influencers wanted collabs. Even a few old college classmates texted things like, "Knew you," blow up eventually. I laughed, because none of them had believed that back when I was cutting demo tracks in my car. Mom called too. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with a pride she used to reserve for Liam. "You're everywhere. Even your uncle in Seattle sent me a photo." I told her not to get too excited, that it was just a campaign. But inside, something in me felt healed. Then came the part no one saw, the silence from Liam. No call, no text, not even a sarcastic post. Nothing. The man who once had an opinion on every chart, every artist, every move I made, had gone completely quiet. I thought maybe he was pretending not to notice. Or maybe he was waiting to see if I'd reach out first. I didn't. Instead, I focused on the flood of new opportunities. My music video, Lights Out, hit 1 million views in a week. A late-night talk show invited me for an interview. I was terrified but said yes, because part of me wanted the world, including Liam, to see that the girl he dismissed was still standing. The night before the tapping, I barely slept. Maya, my manager, was packing around the dressing room rehearsing the talking points we'd agreed on. Keep it humble, talk about authenticity, avoid mentioning family. "You can't turn this into a revenge tour," she warned gently. "The best payback is success." I nodded, but revenge had already woven itself into my heartbeat. The host started the interview with a smile. "Ava Carter, rising star, face of the biggest billboard in Los Angeles. How does it feel?" I said something safe, like it's been a long journey. Then he tilted his head, that journalist gleam in his eyes. "And your last name, Carter. Any relation to Liam Carter of Carter Media?" The studio went still. I felt the breath catch in my throat. Cameras blinked red lights at me like tiny judging eyes. I forced a smile. "Yeah," I said slowly, "he's my brother." Must be interesting, both Carters dominating the industry. Interesting. That was one word for it. The clip went viral within hours. "Ava Carter breaks silence on family ties," headlines read. Fans dug through old photos, connecting dots. Some said I was the real creative genius of the family. Others speculated we'd had a falling out. They weren't wrong. By the weekend, Carter Media's PR team released a bland statement congratulating me on my artistic accomplishments. It didn't have Liam's signature, but everyone knew who wrote it. I should have let it go. But then, at a private industry event, one of his producers cornered me near the bar. "He's losing it," the guy whispered. "The board, asking questions. Your campaign made his numbers dip. Clients want you, not him." That's when I realized my success wasn't just personal anymore. It was affecting his empire. The next morning, my inbox exploded again, this time with something unexpected. An invitation from Carter Media itself. Subject line: potential collaboration opportunity. I stared at it for a full minute. It was polite, formal, dripping with corporate courtesy. They wanted me to perform at an anniversary gala celebrating 20 years of Carter Media. The irony hit me so hard I almost laughed out loud. Maya didn't. "You're not seriously considering it?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe. Why would you walk back into his world?" "Because sometimes," I replied quietly, "you have to walk into the fire to show it doesn't burn you anymore." I RSVP'd yes. The gala was at the Skyline Ballroom, the same place where Liam once hosted a party and introduced me to his friends as the family experiment. I remember standing in the corner that night, clutching a soda while he toasted to his company's success. I remember how small I felt. This time, when I walked through those glass doors, I wasn't small anymore. The red carpet flashed. Reporters shouted my name. Every lens in that room turned toward me, the sister he'd mocked, the woman on his company's billboard. I caught sight of him across the crowd, standing by the bar, watching me like a ghost seeing sunlight for the first time. For a second, the world fell silent. Then his expression hardened into that familiar smirk. "Ava," he said when I approached, "didn't think you'd show." "Guess you don't know me as well as you thought," he laughed softly. "Still dramatic, huh? Still condescending," I said. He looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Look, you've had your moment. Congrats, but don't mistake publicity for power." "Funny," I said, tilting my head. "That's exactly what I was going to tell you." He didn't like that. Before he could reply, one of the board members called him away. I stood there, the music swelling, feeling something electric course through me, not anger, not pride, but something sharper. A knowing. He wasn't untouchable anymore. Later that night, after the performances and speeches, the CEO himself pulled me aside. "You've done incredible work, Ava. We've been following your growth closely." I smiled politely, unsure where it was going. He continued, "Carter Media is expanding into entertainment management. We'd like to discuss a potential partnership, with you leading the creative division." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. That offer meant one thing: the board was ready to move past Liam. And they wanted me to help them do it. The air in that hallway felt heavy, like the whole building was holding its breath. The CEO's words kept looping in my head. "We'd like you to lead the creative division." I followed him into a smaller conference room, glass walls glowing with city lights. My reflection looked almost unfamiliar, calmer, sharper, older. The girl who once begged her brother for studio time was gone. "We're impressed with how you've positioned your brand," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "Carter Media needs a new voice, someone who understands the audience we've been losing, someone who isn't afraid to take risks." I glanced at the proposal. It was real. My name, a budget, a start date. I looked up. "And Liam," his pause said everything. "Let's just say the board's reevaluating certain leadership structures." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, a strange quiet settled inside me. Revenge was supposed to taste sweet. Instead, it felt like standing on a cliff watching the tide pull away. That night I drove home through downtown traffic, the billboard still lit above the freeway. My own face stared back at me, bright and confident. I whispered, "We made it!" But even saying it out loud didn't fill the ache. Maya called as I parked. "You're trending again," she said. "People loved how you handled the gala." "Loved it," I repeated. "Sure, you okay?" "Yeah," I lied. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Liam's face from the gala, his smirk thinning when he realized the board had spoken to me. Somewhere deep down, I still wanted him to say, "I'm proud of you." I hated that I cared. The next morning, a headline hit the trades. "Carter Media announces leadership review amid falling profits." His picture was right beneath it. My coffee went cold. I hadn't lifted a finger, and yet the dominoes were already falling. By noon, he called. "We need to talk." I almost didn't answer, but something in his voice, raw, unpolished, made me press accept. "Yeah, you met with them." "I did. They're using you, Ava. You think they care about your art. They just want to punish me." "Maybe, but they see value in what I built." "You built," he laughed, a brittle sound. "You used my name to get in the door." I stayed quiet. "You think you won because you're on a billboard. Wait until the next cycle. They'll forget you." "Then let them," I said softly. "I'll still be creating long after you stop talking." He hung up. For days, the story twisted through the industry like wildfire. Some said I'd betrayed him. Others called it karma. I ignored them all and kept working, writing songs, meeting with new clients, rehearsing for my tour. Success is loud only when you stop to listen. I decided not to. Then, a week later, an email arrived from the board. Confidential, transition timeline. It confirmed what I'd already suspected. Liam was being replaced as CEO. There was a final paragraph. Pending approval, Ava Carter will serve as interim creative director. I stared at the words until they blurred. The irony was almost unbearable. He told me I'd never make it, and now my signature would appear on the memo announcing his departure. When the board meeting came, the room was full of polite tension. Liam sat at the far end of the table, eyes hard, jaw tight. The chairman thanked him for his years of service and turned to me. "Ava, welcome aboard." Flashbulbs clicked as if someone had choreographed the moment. Liam stood up slowly, his chair scraping the floor. For the first time, I saw not arrogance but exhaustion. He didn't speak, just nodded once and walked out. The door closed behind him, and the room exhaled. I should have smiled, but instead I felt tears sting the corners of my eyes. Maya squeezed my hand under the table. After the meeting, I found him in the parking lot, leaning against his car. The city buzzed around us, neon lights flickering off the hood. "You got what you wanted," he said without turning. "I didn't want this," I whispered. He looked at me then, eyes red but steady. "Yeah, you did." "No, Liam, I wanted respect. You just made it impossible any other way." He nodded slowly, then climbed into the car and drove off. That night, the same billboard that once felt like vindication looked different. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was a mirror showing everything I'd survived. I posted one final message on social media. Sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the ones who teach you how to stand alone. The next morning, it had over 2 million likes. The morning after my brother's public humiliation, I woke up before the sun. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant echo of rain against the window. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't vibrating with someone else's demands. No messages from producers, no last-minute calls, no Liam. Just silence. And in that silence, something strange happened. I felt empty. Everyone online was calling me the sister who won. Clips of Liam's meltdown were trending, memes popping up faster than I could count. People called it justice, karma, poetic revenge. But in that quiet apartment, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of something I'd been fighting for my whole life, his approval, maybe, or the belief that I still needed it. I sat on the couch, wrapped in an oversized hoodie, scrolling through the chaos. Someone had posted a side-by-side video, his company's Billboard with my face on it, and then his viral apology video. The caption read, "When the person you called a dreamer becomes the dream everyone wants." I should have laughed. Instead, I closed my phone. That day I had interviews scheduled, talk shows, podcasts, brand meetings. Everyone wanted a piece of my story. The comeback queen, they called me. But the truth? I didn't feel like a queen. I felt human, raw, exposed, and maybe, finally, free. Still, I couldn't shake the memory of his voice. You'll never make it, Ava. You don't have what it takes. That sentence had followed me for years. It was the reason I worked harder, longer, hungrier than anyone else. It was the reason I didn't quit when the industry chewed me up. It was also the reason I never learned how to rest. Around noon, I got a call from someone unexpected, my mother. We hadn't spoken much since the fallout. She'd always tried to stay neutral between us, though I could tell she leaned toward Liam's version of success, stable, structured, respectable. But that afternoon, her voice was soft. Ava, I saw the interview. You looked strong. I hesitated. Thanks, Mom. He's hurting, she said quietly. Not that it excuses anything, but he's lost. I think he finally understands what he did. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to say good, but another part, the part that still remembered being his little sister, watching him teach me guitar chords in our parents' garage, couldn't find satisfaction in that. I don't hate him, I said finally. I just don't want to be small anymore, she sighed. You never were. That night I drove past the billboard, the one with my face on it. It stood tall above the freeway, bright, confident, almost defiant. My eyes in that photo looked stronger than I felt. Beneath it, the city lights shimmered like something alive. For a second, I pulled over and just watched. It hit me then. Maybe revenge wasn't about destruction. Maybe it was about revelation, about showing the world and yourself who you've always been, even when no one believed you. A week later, I got an invitation, a corporate gala hosted by Liam's company's new management. I almost didn't go. The thought of walking back into that world felt strange. But something in me wanted closure, not as the girl he once dismissed, but as the woman who no longer needed his validation. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and murmured conversations. People I hadn't seen in years turned to look as I walked in. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some smiled, others looked uneasy. And then, across the room, I saw him. Liam stood near the stage, talking to one of the new executives. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. When our eyes met, he froze. For a heartbeat, the room seemed to fade around us. He walked over slowly. Ava, Liam. We stood there, siblings, rivals, strangers. I didn't expect you to come, he said. I wasn't sure I would, he nodded, eyes downcast. You deserved everything you got, I mean what you achieved. I didn't see it back then. I waited, unsure what to say. He went on. I was jealous. I told myself I was protecting you from failure, but really, I just couldn't handle the idea that you might outshine me. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. I didn't need you to protect me, I said quietly. I just needed you to believe in me, he exhaled. I know, and I'm sorry. For the first time, I believed him. We didn't hug. We didn't magically erase everything that had happened. But something shifted, not between us, but within me. The story that had once been about revenge turned into something else entirely, release. That night, as I drove home, I thought about how strange it all was, how pain can be the thing that pushes you toward purpose, how humiliation can evolve into healing. The world still saw it as a revenge story, but I knew better. It was a rebirth. When I got home, I posted one last message on my social media. I used to chase validation. Now I chase peace. And somehow that's what success really feels like. The comments flooded in, but I didn't need them anymore. Because for the first time since my brother said I'd never make it, I finally believed that I already had. The morning after the gala, sunlight spilled across my apartment like a quiet apology. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept replaying Liam's face, not the arrogant version from years ago, but the tired, human one I'd seen last night. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, just closure. I made coffee, opened the balcony door, and listened to the city hum beneath me. Somewhere downtown, that same billboard still glowed with my name. I used to dream about that kind of recognition, the kind that made people stop and look. Now I wanted something quieter, something real. My manager called before I'd finished my cup. You won't believe this, she said, excitement buzzing through the line. Studio 9 wants you for their new documentary series, Faces of the Future. They want your story to open it. I laughed softly. My story or my brother's downfall. They said your story. The way you handled everything, no public drama, just truth. They think people need that right now. For a long time, I stared at my reflection in the glass door. I looked different, older, steadier. Maybe because I finally understood that fame without peace is just noise. Tell them yes, I said. Filming began a month later. The first day on set felt surreal. Bright lights, a quiet studio, crew members moving like shadows. The director, a calm woman with kind eyes, asked me to start at the beginning. Talk to the camera, she said. Like you're talking to someone who doesn't know you but needs to hear the truth. So I did. I told them about growing up in small-town Ohio, about how Liam had been the golden child while I was the dreamer with impractical ambitions. I told them about the nights I spent editing videos on a second-hand laptop, about the first time a stranger recognized my work online. And when I reached the part where my brother said, "You'll never make it," my throat tightened, but I kept going. Those words built a fire in me, I said to the lens. But what I learned later is that you can't live your whole life trying to prove someone wrong. You have to start proving yourself right. When the director finally called cut, the room was silent. One of the sound techs wiped a tear from her eye. I smiled. Maybe that was enough reason to keep telling the story. A week before the premiere, a journalist from the New York Post called. Liam's company just filed for bankruptcy, she said. Turns out the new execs were cooking the books even after he left. He's being called to testify as a witness. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. The universe had a dark sense of humor sometimes. Do you plan to comment? She asked. No, I said. That's his story to tell. Mine already ended. But when I hung up, I couldn't help feeling that same mixture of sorrow and strange relief. Liam had spent years building a tower out of ego, and now it was collapsing, without me lifting a finger. The documentary aired on a Sunday night. I watched it alone, curled up on my couch with a blanket and popcorn. My face filled the screen, my voice narrating every mistake and miracle. I'd thought it might feel vulnerable, but instead it felt honest. Halfway through, they showed a montage, clips of me performing, designing, laughing with friends, cut against the old footage of that billboard. Then my voice. He said I'd never make it. But the truth is, I never needed him to believe in me. I just needed to believe in myself. The credits rolled. I exhaled. Within hours, messages poured in from everywhere. Young women, struggling artists, people who'd been told they weren't enough. Your story gave me courage. I quit my toxic job today. My brother said the same thing yours did. Thank you for surviving it. It hit me then. Maybe the billboard had never been about revenge or recognition. Maybe it was a mirror for everyone who'd ever been underestimated. A few days later, Liam called. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. I saw the documentary, he said. Yeah, you told the truth. I deserved worse. Silence stretched between us, long, heavy, but not angry. I'm starting something new, he added. A mentorship program for small creators. I don't expect you to care, but I thought you should know I'm trying. I smiled faintly. That's good, Liam. Just do it for the right reasons this time. I will. After the call, I sat for a long time, staring at the city again. It was strange, how forgiveness sometimes arrived not as a grand gesture, but as a quiet acceptance that the past couldn't be changed, only understood. That summer, I was invited to speak at an industry conference in Los Angeles. When I walked on stage, the crowd erupted, hundreds of people who'd followed my journey. I gripped the microphone, took a deep breath, and said, 3 years ago, someone I loved told me I'd never make it. Today, I'm not here to prove him wrong. I'm here to tell you that no one gets to define your worth, especially not fear disguised as advice. The applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed. But all I could think about was that small-town garage, the old guitar, and the girl I used to be, wide-eyed, scared, but unwilling to stop dreaming. When the session ended, a young woman approached me. She looked nervous. I'm sorry, she said. I just had to tell you my brother says the same things to me, that I'm wasting my time on music. But after watching your story, I'm not giving up. I smiled, feeling tears rise. Good, don't give up. Because sometimes the people who doubt you aren't really afraid of your failure, they're afraid of your light. She nodded, wiping her eyes. and for the first time in a long time, I felt the circle close completely. That night, driving home along the Pacific Coast Highway, I rolled down the window. The ocean wind tangled my hair, and the horizon burned gold. My phone buzzed, another headline alert. Ava Carter's Billboard story hits 10 million views. I laughed softly. It no longer felt like irony. It felt like destiny. Because my face on that billboard wasn't just a reminder of what I'd survived. It was proof that sometimes, the same voice that tried to break you becomes the echo that amplifies you. And in that fading California sunset, I whispered the words that had started it all. My brother said I'd never make it. Then I smiled. But I did. It's funny how time changes the way you remember things. The night I stood under that billboard, watching my own face glow against the skyline, I thought that moment would define me forever. I thought success would feel like revenge, sharp, electric, undeniable. But now, 5 years later, it just feels like peace. Northlight Studios isn't just mine anymore. It's a team, a family. We work with global brands now, but we still take on small-town artists and indie projects, because that's where my heart started. My office looks out over the city, and every morning, the light hits the window just right. I can almost see my younger self walking down that street, clutching a cracked phone, waiting for a call that never came. Sometimes I catch myself smiling, because she had no idea what was waiting for her. I still remember the day Liam called me. It was a random Wednesday afternoon, the kind where everything feels too normal to expect anything dramatic. His name flashed on my screen, and for a moment, I froze. I hadn't spoken to him in nearly 4 years. "Hey," he said. His voice sounded different, slower, lower, like it had learned how to bend instead of break. "Hey," I replied carefully. "I saw the new campaign," he said. "The one with the short film about creative rebirth. It's good, really good." "Thanks," I said softly. There was a pause. Then he added, "I didn't get it back then, what you were chasing. I thought you were just being dramatic, trying to prove something, but I get it now." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. He sighed. "I lost my position at the company last year. They merged, new management came in. Guess I wasn't as irreplaceable as I thought." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the nights he laughed at me. The parties where he called me a dreamer in front of his friends. The cold smirk when he said, "You'll come running back when the rent's due." And somehow, I didn't feel bitter anymore. I just felt done. "I hope you're doing better now," I said finally. "I'm trying," he replied. Then after a beat, "Ava, I'm proud of you." That part, that one line, hit harder than anything else he'd ever said. Because I realized I didn't need his pride. I'd built my world without it, but hearing it still healed something small and quiet inside me. We talked for a few more minutes about work, about mom, about life, and when we hung up, I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the screen, smiling to myself. That was the last time we spoke. He moved to another state a year later. I heard through family that he started consulting for smaller businesses, helping them grow, teaching them what not to do. I guess people change. I guess pain teaches. A few months after that call, I was invited to speak at a creative conference in LA, a huge event filled with directors, entrepreneurs, and designers. As I walked onto that stage, lights beaming, cameras flashing, I caught a glimpse of something on the back wall, a quote from the event's highlight reel. It read, "They'll tell you you're too much, too soft, too unrealistic, until your dream becomes the standard they measure success by." I paused, smiled, because that was my story, that was my heartbeat. I looked out at the audience, hundreds of faces, bright, expectant, and I said, "When my brother told me I'd never make it, I believed him for a long time. I thought failure was proof that he was right. But the truth is, failure was the class I had to pass before life handed me the keys." They laughed, clapped, nodded. "But here's the thing," I continued. "Revenge fades. Success doesn't have to be about proving someone wrong. It can be about proving yourself right. I didn't win because he lost. I won because I stopped trying to play his game." The applause was soft at first, then louder. And in that moment, I realized something I wish I'd known years ago. Peace doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you stop needing them to. Now, when I walk through the city, I still see that old billboard, the one with my face and the campaign logo that started it all. It's faded now, peeling at the edges. But every time I pass by, I whisper a small thank you to the girl who kept going when no one believed in her. Because that's the real victory. Not the fame, not the deals, not the spotlight. It's the quiet mornings when you realize you no longer have to prove your worth to anyone. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, I swear I can almost hear my brother's old words echo in my head. You'll never make it. Only this time, they sound like music. Because I did, and I made it further than either of us ever imagined.